LG 34UM67. It's sort of a smaller version of the 95. Well, not smaller version, just fewer pixels as far as the pixel density go. This one is 2560 by 1080 and 34 inches diagonally from one corner to the other corner. And it's a really pretty IPS display. Now I'm going to cover the specs first. This also kinda has Freesync, and I said kinda has Freesync, and we'll get to that in just a minute, you know, after we get through all the basic specs and just talk about the panel quality and all that sort of thing. The response time on this is 14 milliseconds, and I did notice some very minor ghosting. It looks almost like the lowest ever setting of motion blur in a game, and I did notice that in a couple of different games. It's not severe, and you have to really be looking for it, and I found most of the games to be totally playable. And most people are not going to notice it, but you can see it. The viewing angle, 178 degrees on the side. They've coated this with a hard anti-glare coating. It looks pretty good, especially if you're sitting directly in front of it, even in a room with lots and lots of windows like this. One of the interesting things about it is if you kind of move around to the sides, sometimes you can see, it's not exactly glare, it's more of like haze. You don't see reflections of items in the screen, but you'll see sort of like there's a little hazy area here where there's just too much light hitting it. And that's usually only in the more extreme circumstances. Pixel pitch is 0.312 by 0.310. Color depth 16.7 million colors. Let's look at the inputs and outputs on the back. We have a DVI-D, and you'll need that for this resolution. HDMI, we have two of those, one on the side and one on the back. Then we have a display port. And the strange thing is, in the box, they have not included a display port cable. They've given us an HDMI cable. I think a display port would have been much better for a monitor like this, but HDMI is in the box. Strange enough. Also, there is audio pass-through. There's audio in and then a headphone out, or you can run it to your speakers if you wanted to. Whatever you want. It's basically just an audio pass-through. Other than that, there is, they do have two tiny 7-watt speakers built in. Now, on this, I want to mention the stand is extremely sleek. There is a VESA mount, just standard, 100mm VESA mount. If you wanted to mount this onto a monitor arm, it'll work just fine. Just make sure that your monitor can support the weight. It's 7.3 kilograms. That's with the stand. Without the stand, it's 6.3 kilograms. Now, back to the base. It's very sleek, clear plastic. And as far as the installation goes, it has two different settings, so you can install your monitor on two different settings to make it a little higher or a little shorter. This was like the easiest monitor stand I've ever had to deal with. There was no like strange things to snap together or weird, awkward stuff going on. It was just you put it on the table and you screw two screws in and you're done. The full dimensions of this unit with the stand are 829.9 by 172.9 by 468.9. That's in millimeters. And then without the stand, if you're going to put it on the monitor arm, 829.9 by 82.9 height, and then 379.8. Now let's talk about my favorite things about this monitor. 75 Hertz is pretty good for this resolution. So 60 Hertz I always thought was slightly limiting. I play with 60 Hertz on my main monitor just because I wanted a 1440p monitor, but I'm really hoping to upgrade to an IPS monitor that can support 75, 100, 140 Hertz, something higher. So that's going to help for gaming. Also, the aspect ratio, 2560 by 1080 is probably my favorite gaming resolution now. After seeing this monitor, we had a smaller LG panel that was, I believe, one of the Korean monitors, but that had an LG panel in it for a 29-inch version of the 29 inches, but the same resolution, 21 by 9. This resolution is awesome for gaming. Just having that extra bit on the sides. And also, one thing that's nice about this, 2560 by 1080 is way easier than doing the 21 by 9 4K that you see with like the UM95 model from LG. And we've got Freesync as well, but I'm not going to get to Freesync just yet. That'll be one of the last things I talk about. It does have something called Dynamic Action Sync. This is interesting. Even though the response time of the monitor is a little low, they wanted to make sure that there was no input lag. So they created this Dynamic Action Sync mode. I'm not sure what sort of voodoo they put into this, but when they tested it, the accuracy was the response time was 9.6 milliseconds. Pretty good. It feels as good as anything I've ever used. It feels as good as a TN panel, in my opinion. So I'm not sure what is going on behind the scenes there, but it really helps to cut down the input lag, and it works in and out of games. All right, now there's something called the black stabilizer. Now this is weird. I guess a lot of people do a gamma hack where they just crank the gamma up so that way they can see people in dark situations. This is a little bit better because it allows you to maintain decent image quality. You don't have to, crank the gamma all the way up. But it detects what parts of the screen are dark and then brightens just those areas. To me, it's almost like cheating, but I mean, some people are going to turn their monitor brightness up anyway. but it can really help you see different enemies in darker environments, especially if they're trying to hide in the shadows and that sort of thing. It'll bump those up a little bit. It can also do the same thing for like flashbangs and stuff when the screen goes completely white. It can help to dim that down so it doesn't like startle you as the player sitting at your screen. Don't know how I feel about that, but it's in there. Now they've also included a piece of software called Force Screen Split. And this is interesting because in Windows, it allows you to open up multiple things and it will automatically assign them to different spots, and you can snap them into different areas. It basically creates different regions on the screen to enhance your productivity. It's almost like a Linux window manager. So that's kind of an interesting piece of software that you can get and run on here. All right, let's talk about the color of the IPS screen. I thought it looked really good. I mean, LG's been doing a hell of a job with their panels. Their color reproduction is great. Viewing angles were pretty good. It was a little bit difficult if you're standing and looking down at the monitor and from the side, you're looking at like a strange angle. Sometimes it was difficult, but if you're on the level of the monitor, even from the different sides, it looks pretty good. They've also put in several different picture modes to help enhance your gameplay. There's like a couple of different FPS modes and an RTS mode. It's basically just get different color and contrast profiles. You can go in and create your own as well, or you can use one of those. Using the menu in this was really nice and easy. There's just a tiny little joystick on the bottom that serves for everything. Just one little button. You press it, and then you can move it back and forth to bring the on-screen display up. Very easy to navigate through, and if you want to exit the display, you just press the left, several times, and you're done. As it is right now, it has a nice slim bezel. It's a slim monitor, beautiful IPS, nice aspect ratio, and good size for gaming. So without FreeSync, I like this monitor. The FreeSync is what's a bit underwhelming. Now, the FreeSync spec is way greater than what you're getting with this. I mean, you can go way lower than this. With this monitor, FreeSync works when you're running between 48 Hertz and the 75 Hertz at the top. So you have a very narrow window of FreeSync here. And for playing games like, I don't know, any game that you're really taxing with mods and stuff like Skyrim or something, most people are going to be dropping below that 48 threshold and getting into some territory where you're going to have to rely on VSync again, and then you're going to have the stuttering or you're going to have the tearing, so that defeats the purpose. Other games, like some of the older games like Counter-Strike Source and stuff, most of you people are going to be playing that with your decent graphics cards. I mean, the graphics cards that can power this, like the newer AMD graphics cards that work with FreeSync are probably going to be pushing that to above 100 frames per second. So you're going to have to go in there and make sure that you turn on all the extra filters. It's kind of weird. We found ourselves, after we got the drivers installed, going into even some freaking MMOs and trying to turn on all the extra filters and the view distance all the way up just so that we could get below 75 FPS and take advantage of FreeSync, because it is a smoother gameplay experience. If you really want like the best FreeSync experience, you may have to wait until we get some monitors with higher refresh rate that have a more fully implemented version of FreeSync. So there you have it, the LG Ultra Wide 34UM67. It's a really pretty monitor, just wish it had better FreeSync support. See you guys next time.